Welcome to Mental Millennials with your host, Shelby Friesen.
How you got into like being a naturopath over, I mean, obviously anything else you could do in life. That you had like the
A
health.
lot of options there. That's a
Yeah.
good point, actually. It's a good question you bring up because when I was in university, I English was my third language, and so I thought I was never going to be very good at it, and I just inherently went to sciences for that reason. And then when you're in sciences, the ambition is to become a physician because, at least in my mind, it was.
Mhm.
It's respectable. I do good work. It is challenging. It is continuously evolving. It gives back. I mean,
Mhm.
it's an art form. It's a skill I have for the rest of my life. And and then after answering a bunch of interview questions from different universities, I realized, oh, you know what, this might not actually be the right fit for me. Not that it's wrong. It's just not the right fit for me because of the principles and the way. The tools that I'm allowed to use. And
Mhm.
because when you're a part of the College of Physicians and Surgeons, your hands are a little bit tied because you're part of the system on what you can and can't do. And so I really feel for some of the physicians and some of the positions that they're in, especially currently with the pandemic going on and whatnot. But,
Mhm.
given what you said about you could have been anything, it's interesting you say that because as a young kid, I always had this feeling of I couldn't fall behind. I always had to be on par with everyone else. So if other people were finding jobs, if other people were finding their passion, I had to find my passion. And
Mhm.
so I was really kind of scrambling to be like, what's it going to be? And then I discovered naturopathic medicine through my mother. And at first I was a little hesitant because I was very unfamiliar with acupuncture and herbal medicine and chiropractics and so on. And there was a little bit of resistance there, but it was the principles that really resonated with me. The treat the root cause, the doctor as a teacher, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Let nature do its job. So, you get a fever and it's your immune system, your body that's actually creating the fever. And most of the time you don't need to take something for it to resolve because your body has all the tools. Now,
Mhm.
sometimes, of course, there is an obstruction or hurdle, and that's where you want to really address the root cause. And so these principles really, really aligned and really, really resonated for me, and that's why I got in the naturopathic field. And it's funny to me now because once I was accepted, all of a sudden I had this realization: oh well, I could, like, I all of a sudden chose something, and now I'm 4 years again in education. I went 4 years right through university, and now I'm again 4 years right into schooling. And so I realized, oh, maybe I should have taken a little bit of time just to do some personal growth because I think I don't know about you, Shelby, but when I was young, I thought a lot about what I wanted to be, and
Mhm.
not as much as who I wanted to be. And
Mhm.
I think who you want to be really reflects a lot in any profession that you do. And it actually allows you to thrive in the profession that you're in and really allows you to authentically show up both in your life and in your profession. And that's sort of where I actually hit a wall in my first year in practice because I realized I had this idea of what a doctor was supposed to be in my head, but I wasn't. I was trying to be this person that I thought I had to be, and I wasn't being myself. And
Mhm.
lo and behold, I wasn't having a lot of fun. I wasn't really enjoying what I was doing. I wasn't showing up. And how can you ask other patients to show up with you if they can resonate that something's not showing up for yourself, right?
Mhm.
And so, yeah, that's kind of like the story to it.
Yeah, that's good. Um, okay. Well, and then you also said you had some health issues of that were. Is that what like triggered you to start it, or no? That was just a general thing that some
That was a
people have.
general thing, although it
Okay.
really was I had eczema when I was in
Oh, okay.
university, and it was on my face. And of course, aesthetically, I wanted to look pleasing to the eye, and so it was like a bit of an ego. Felt very vulnerable, and I used to also get cold sores more frequently when I was in university. Now, granted, the university lifestyle wasn't one I would ever
Mhm.
prescribe for somebody, but going into naturopathic school in my first year, I managed to resolve both those aspects. So now days I get maybe a cold sore once a year,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I don't ever get eczema again. And
Mhm.
And it was interesting because when I went to see my physician, they told me, well, it's your skin, you know, it's what you're born with. You will have to live with it for the rest of your life. And that was a really like climactic moment for me because, you know, when I was young, I had this idea of that you're invulnerable, nothing can touch you. And then as life takes place and evolves, you realize there's things in your life you cannot just get rid of. You can't just resolve, and some things you're going to have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Some things longer, something shorter, maybe some things for the rest of your life, right? And so that was a really vulnerable moment for me where I was like, oh man, like I'm not invulnerable anymore. So yeah, in that respect, naturopathic medicine really came in.
Yeah, I think well, all that stuff normally with like doctors, like acne and all those sorts of things, like I mean, I think usually a diet or proper lifestyle can fix that like almost every time.
True, it does, but it's not easy. And most people
No.
go see the doctor, it's not because they want to go the hard way. So, you know,
Yeah.
if you come in for acne and you're young, and the doc said to you, you're going to have to change your whole diet. Sorry, you can't go out for drinks with your friends. You can't eat that pizza for that, you know, Super Bowl party and whatnot. You're going to be like, or, you know, they might say, oh, you know what, here's tretinoin. We're going to give you a high dose vitamin A, like super high doses. And voila, it's resolved, or it's like, you know, like significantly better. But you know, there's liver toxicity, and then your periods might get worse because of the liver, and then there's all these side effects that come with it. And then you as a patient, at least if you're informed about it, at the end of the day, there's no right or wrong. You get to make a decision. Like, does that work for me?
Yeah.
Does that work for me right now?
Yeah.
But I hear what you mean. Like, like the things we can do, we are so powerful as human beings. And it's just about applying yourself every single day, and that's easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really a lot where my passion comes in. It's about making these decisions day to day, but finding or discovering the why you're doing it, and also in a way that is enjoyable for you, that really resonates. I'm really big into people showing up authentically in their treatment plans and really honoring like, that works for me, that doesn't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
I can foresee an obstacle here, and I don't think I'm ready, or I do not have the tools yet to overcome that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that way, when people make changes, they're in alignment with it, and they might find the silver linings in them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I guess it's like, yeah, I mean, even I think about like back in the day when I first started to see you, there was no way I would have just like completely changed my life instantly to the way that it is now, right?
And back then, I think I was like really more so like, oh no, you got to do this. This is the way it's got to be done. And there was less of that silver lining, less of that like middle process of what's going to take place and what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate you being along the road with me for it.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. I mean, like I said before, comparative to like a doctor, like I learned so much even just from that first time, you know, from the initial consultation that we had. Like, well, I mean, even the research that I've done stuff now, like doctors only have like, I think at a max like 4 hours worth of like training on nutrition or things like that. So even the fact that nutrition takes a play in your health, I mean, I guess for me it was the mental health thing, because I never associated like, how does eating food going into like your stomach have anything to do with your brain? And I think that's where I was pretty shocked for the first time I'm even hearing that, right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, certainly it sounds all prophetic, being like, oh, well, you are what you eat, and you eat what you are. Either one works really. And but then, you know, understanding the kind of like the details behind that, what's taking place in your digestive tract, what are you actually producing that's making you feel that way, and what's your relationship around food, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot that can be there.
Yeah, no, honestly, big time.
And going back more for you with the doctor versus naturopath thing, like when you said you were making that decision on like what they did and didn't let you use, like for tools wise to be able to like work with, was that to be able to work with patients?
I think it's because one thing I realized was that volunteering in the hospital for 2 years, I realized I never wanted to be in a hospital. It was not a very healing space for me. I mean, I think there's tremendous work done there. I have tremendous respect for nurses. Actually, I think they're like the top of the respect pinnacle of the pyramid for me. But it's the system in which it's created, and there's certain things you might not like, but they have to be in place. And I just realized that who I was did not fit into that mold. And I also realized that if I wanted to be part of the public healthcare system, well, then I'm able to make a big impact. Albeit I might only be able to see people for 5 to 10 minutes, and I'm a personable person. I believe I like to connect with people. I like to really understand the nitty gritty, what's underneath the surface. When we're peeling off the layers, right? I feel like it's very difficult for me to do that within that scope. But I mean, there comes a price with free universal healthcare, right? There's a price that comes with that, and I think sometimes patients misunderstand that. They say, "Oh, my doctor didn't have time for me," or "My doctor prescribed me this medication before even looking much further," or "I was referred to the specialist." Well, these are all great options, actually, because you actually had those choices and you didn't have to pay a dime for it, and you got to see a physician that gave you or provided you with something that was in his toolbox. I'm not expecting a physician to be like, "Yeah, I'm going to make you an intravenous line of vitamins and minerals right now," or "Hey, let me just go in the back and concoct a herbal tea or tincture." No, there's no time for that. And like you said, it's not actually within the scope of practice. I think that the way the system's set up is also to help people when they're ill. Not when they're not feeling quite all right. When you come to the doctor, I'm like, "Yeah, something's not, I don't really know what it is. I'm not feeling at my best." The system's not quite set up for that. And also the testing, the diagnostics that we have in our system, they're not set up for that either. If you take a look at people's, something as simple as a thyroid marker, known commonly as a TSH, a thyroid stimulating hormone, the range is actually fairly large. It's from like 0.4 or 5 to 5.2 or 5.4. That's a really big range. And why is that such a big range? Because if you take, let's say 60-70% of the population, right? And there's a lot of unhealthy people, and there's also a lot of healthy people, and you put them on a statistical bell curve, you're going to find this broad range of what's considered to be normal. What's the mean? What are the standard deviations? What's the median between that? And when you get a test done and you fall in within that category or within that parameter, well, then you're considered normal. But that might not necessarily be your normal, right? Because you're a very unique individual, and you have a unique upbringing, and you have a unique genetic code, and you have a unique nutritional intake and unique way of thinking and dealing and reacting and perceiving and coping with things. And I think that's also at times sometimes where naturopathic medicine is a little bit weaker in the evidence-based medicine field. Like, it's interesting to me that I personally believe that personalized medicine is the pinnacle that we achieve for. I think that really doesn't matter what kind of medicine you do, but you really personalize it to that person, right? The trouble with that, though, is that when you take that into consideration, like taking a human being into consideration, you think about all the variables I just mentioned, right? All the factors that make up that person, who they are. It's really difficult to assess something research-driven. Very difficult to take into consideration, like if you took a drug or if you took a particular therapy for a certain period of time, and let alone analyzing the research studies, such as who sponsored it, how many people were in the sample size, how many dropped out, why did they drop out, if they took a therapy. Let's say they took vitamin C. Well, what form of vitamin C was it? Or they took vitamin E. What form of vitamin E was it? Taking all those specifics aside, you're just looking actually at the person. There's so many variables that are difficult to control as a researcher that it makes sense that some naturopathic modalities are very difficult to assess.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense, but that's also in this like double-edged sword sort of analogy. It's also the strength, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was my digression there.
Yeah, I think, well, because I've seen a bunch of research, and one that I always remember was this. I don't remember what it was called, but it was for angina. It was a pill, like for like the heart pain.
Yeah.
And for them to put that on the market, they did a study for, I don't remember what it was. I think it was a couple months, and basically their like group had on average 4 attacks a week before they took this pill, and they took the pill for like I think 60 days or 90 days, and it dropped to like 3.5.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were allowed to sell that as a drug that works for angina, and it's on the market. I don't know what it's called, but I was like, you could literally do anything. You could even do nothing and that might happen.
Yeah, then you need to look at like what's the relative risk, what's the absolute risks. Those are two very different kind of statistical measurements that are public usually is not aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And then like you said, oh, this made a difference, but then we're like, were these people diabetics? Were they smokers? Did they exercise? Did they have like all these factors that researchers really try to control for? But there's some things that are difficult. And then there's some research studies that, I mean, I gotta tip my hat off and say, okay, well, I'm really happy you guys decided to research this topic, because you'll never make a dime out of it, because it's not a therapy that's gonna get patented and go on the market.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, I sometimes forget that the average individual isn't aware of what their health can do for them, what medicine can do for them. So when a research study comes out that says exercise is good for your mental health or for your heart or for your overall health, a part of me is just like, really, do you need a scientific research paper to tell you this? Really? Not think. Or drinking enough water is good for you, or having a diet low in sugar is good for you, within means. So like, and I think that's that critical or maybe jaded or that disenchanted part of me that's just like, oh, these people should know that. And so yeah, I tip my hat off, being like, well done. I'm really happy you guys are putting this out there for people to see. And then another part of me is just kind of surprised, being like, oh, people need to know this, because they don't know this.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little thing we talked about before too, is like, those are very simple things. Like, to me now, it's insanely obvious that you should just work out or do something like, work out, and eating and all those things make a huge difference. But yeah, like the more I like talk to people and get out there, and you really realize that people actually have no clue, like, at all. And that's, yeah, it's kind of like mind blowing. But then you forget how much, I mean, especially you, even over me, how much research and learning and stuff have you done? Like, you probably know so much that stuff just seems like so long ago that it's insane.
Only so much, because a lot of it just funnels in, and then it just keeps coming in. So some of it has to leave again, because there's always so much in there. But that's why we as physicians always have books around, and I know so many colleagues of mine that are like, tell the patient, just hold on a second, I'll be right back, and they go in their back room, they're like, okay, I gotta look up this page here, because I don't know. And that's normal, because there's only so much information you can carry unless you very, very much specialize in a field where you really see the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. Whereas I think someone in a general family practice, you say everything and anything, right? Jack of all trades. It's that's where knowledge, books, colleagues, networking, and something like that. Having good resources goes a long way.
Yeah, there's tons of it.
Tons. There's a lot of misinformation, right? There's the internet's one big resource, and then you have patients come in and they get scared at times of what they read, or they, you give them a treatment plan. You say, okay, you need to follow this diet, and this is my take on this diet. And then they go and look up that diet on the internet and find 4 other versions of it. And then they ask you, like, well, which one should I do? It's like, well, why did you check that out? Like, you're here, we're working together. This is what I think you should do. Now, if what I wrote down does not resonate for you, and you found another one that resonates very much for you, then certainly send it to me. and maybe we can, align those and make that work for you. But it's sort of like in medicine, if you have got too many cooks in the kitchen, it'll spoil the meal. So it goes for a lot of things.
Yeah, there's so much stuff online too. I have a friend who has been kind of doing that. Like he'll go to he's been going to I forget what that place integrated in Fort Langley. Like so many people go there now, but he's been going there, and I forget who he sees, but she'll give him like a little diet plan, and then he'll go and research it and be like, well, then this person says that you're supposed to do this, and she told me to do this, and he'll call me and we'll talk about it. I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm like, I would just probably do what she says or show her. And then he would do what you said, like send them to her, and she'd be like, okay, well, whatever, you could do a little bit of that one. But it is kind of cool that you can, pardon me?
Sorry, go ahead. Finish that.
I was just going to say, it is kind of cool that you can do that, right? It's like, okay, I mean, for me, I think a big thing is the belief factor. Like, if you don't believe that diet's going to work and you do it, it's probably not going to work. But if you find one that helps, that you believe in and you think is going to be a lot more useful, if you can kind of combine those so that believability is there, I think that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I agree with you. I remember when I was first in university, the term placebo got tossed around like it was just some sort of filthy word. But now in retrospect, looking at it, we also call placebo the meaning response, that when you have a belief in something, there's certain advantages to doing or pursuing that particular route. I mean, it's really says something that a research study has to beat 30%, because otherwise it may be considered placebo. I'm like 30%, like that's a high percentage really to think about. And the reverse is true as well. The nocebo response, when you think something is going to be harmful to you, and then it actually follows through like that in some way, shape, or form. For me, I think a lot of it is compliance. I think if you don't believe in something that's incongruent with you, and then you're asked to do that 1 time a day or 3 times a day or 5 times a day, that's very difficult for you to be compliant to that and actually do that in a way that works in alignment with you. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. There's many times I've provided therapies that didn't work out with patients because patients didn't do them.
Yeah.
Like, you had all the tools, I gave you what to do, and you still didn't do it. And certainly that makes sense, because sometimes maybe I've like overloaded someone, or someone wasn't clear with me. I mean, nowadays that's not so much an issue, because I've always had a very transparent dialogue with patients where I'm like, you need to tell me exactly where you're at, because I'm here for you. Like, I'm not doing this for me. I'm spending this time with you to give you what you're searching for. And you're actually paying me for it. You're actually investing in it. So listen to me. And if this doesn't work now, then let me know when it would work, under what circumstances it would work, what support you would need to make that work. So I find there's a lot of, it's like the little things that add everything up. Those in-between moments that are just as important as the going to see the doctor and getting the treatment plan.
Do you find that when people come to you, as opposed to because for me, when I came, I just basically, there was just nothing more that I could get out of a doctor. It's like I went so many times and they just kept doing the same thing, prescribing me Ativan, basically said, here, take this Ativan and get some exercise. And I'm like, okay, I know,
out of respect.
Yeah, I'm like, I know that I have to exercise, but I was like, I don't think, I was like, there's no way that and that pill are going to fix me. So I was like, I have to try something else. But do you find that when people come in for the first time that they are skeptical about things? Because it's kind of a different way than most people know, right? Or most people, have they done a lot of research before they see you for the first time?
I think it's going to any social networking event. You're going to find people of different creeds and ages and styles. So, I have the person that comes in that's actually forced in by their partner. That's the worst case scenario, because, you know, you kind of need to do inception on them because they're going to be putting their walls up from the get-go.
Yeah.
You got the person that comes in and just starts the first 20 minutes off just bashing the medical system and is looking for some sort of connection through that, which they don't find with me, because I actually have a lot of understanding for both sides of that argument. And, you know, I have sometimes cancer patients that come up and then they're surprised that I suggest to them that they do this particular type of chemotherapy, and which I think their oncologist really appreciates when it comes from a naturopathic physician. And, you know, I take a look at the research, I take a look at the stats, I take a look at the health, the quality of life of the patients, and of course, all the additional tools that we have in place as naturopathic physicians to support someone in that cycle. And yeah, you know, you get some people that come in very skeptical. You know, I'll never forget this. You know, there's some patients you just can't forget. This lady came in and she sat down and she like immediately crossed her arms. She sat across from me. You're going to talk to me about diet and like healthy thinking and lifestyle, and don't you dare talk about detoxification. Then this meeting's over. I was just like, what? Really? You know, like, you know, certainly the word detoxification, one can say that's a fad word that's commonly used, whatnot. But, you know, if you defecate, if you urinate, if you sweat, you're detoxing. Like, stuff hanging out of your body, right? Like, there's something to be said for that. So when people are that skeptical, I usually have a very upfront conversation, because, you know, in a way, I also have the right as a physician to make the choice if I'd like to take this patient on as my patient. Sort of like a friendship in a way that I want to take on to work together, because my belief is that, you know, you've probably waited quite a while for this to finally address this issue. It's going to take a little bit, because chances are there's multiple aspects of your health that haven't been addressed, right? Let alone mental, emotional. I'm talking even like just physically, you know, from like certain organs, cell function, etc. And so, you know, like, there's nothing more fulfilling for me than to look in my schedule and see a list of people that I love seeing. It's like, you're awesome, you're awesome, you're awesome, you're okay, and you're awesome, you're awesome. and that's a very fulfilling practice for me. And so it's more to me about certainly what condition people come in, because I have my strengths and I have my weaknesses, but also like, what kind of person am I working with? And are they willing to be on board? I mean, like, you wouldn't want to go on a road trip with someone that's kicking and screaming for the entire way. No. That's not enjoyable at all. And I think there's a lot to be said about when you mention, you know, they've seen their physician and they were prescribed something, or they kept being prescribed the same thing, either the same thing or the same thing in different form over and over again, and they felt like they weren't being heard. It's sometimes maybe that particular doctor. There's a lot to be said about a second opinion on things. And so I usually recommend, this is something I ask patients in the get-go, is like, how's your relationship with your GP? And some people say, oh, it's amazing. I'm like, great. Some people say, I hate this person. And I'm like, well, why would you work together? And that's where of course the fallacy is, where you know that there's only so many physicians and there's this many people, and if you consider yourself actually really lucky when you have a physician that you found, right? That's someone that'll take you on. But you know, it becomes this double-edged sword in a way, where it's like, which way do you grip it? Like, you're happy to have this person, but you're also not resonating and working together, and maybe at times both parties feel like their time's being wasted. So yeah. But I think that's where walk-in clinics, I mean, to be honest here, I had a physician, and, you know, like, she wasn't bad. She just wasn't the right fit for me. She was actually a fairly good physician. She just, you know, we just didn't kind of click on the same terms or listening. I didn't feel like I was being really heard. So for like prior to that, I mean, no, around that time, I think 10 years worth of that time that passed, I was seeing walk-in doctors. And I did that until I found one that I was like, oh, you know, we're really connecting. And I just asked what days that doctor was in. Yeah. And those days I came in, and certainly I didn't get in all the time, but I mean, I wasn't the case that needed to. So I usually recommend that for patients, and honestly, go on the College of Physicians and Surgeons website, and you can always find, not always, but you can look up doctors in your area and see who's currently accepting new patients. You kind of have to jump on it, and yes, most people are usually grandfathered in through a connection or their family member or whatnot.
Yeah, I find a lot of places actually don't take new clients. Like there's so many people.
Yeah, I remember a clinic said, "Oh, we accept clients." You call a week later, sorry, we're full.
Yeah. I even up at my like family doctor, I actually think he might have retired now, but for me even to get in, like I always found that it was so long. I'd call and she'd be like, yeah, we're booking it for next month. I'm like, next month? I'm like, how the hell is that supposed to help? So then,
Yeah.
but they have like an emergency appointment every day. So if you call at 9 a.m. and basically fake that it's not fake, but say that you really need to see someone.
Yeah, you're just more expressive. That's
Yeah, then you can get in that day or usually
Generally,
like,
I tend to be expressive when I'm at the doctor's office.
yeah, or the next day. So I would always do that and it would work out. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think the connection thing too, because like you're only in the doctor's office for like 5 or 10 minutes. I think that was the huge
So that's
difference.
only the time you're waiting for the doctor to show up.
Yeah, true. Yeah, you're spending a lot more time by yourself in the lobby.
Yeah.
But I think for me, yeah, like that 5 minutes and then coming to see you as a naturopath and spending like, each appointment was at a minimum 30 minutes, especially the
Yeah,
first
if
like
it's 30 minutes, you're looking at like $90 out of your pocket. So you come in for a first hour, you're spending $210, and that can really feel like a lot of money when you're used to not paying a dime for healthcare, right?
Mhm.
Like, I can totally resonate with that. I understand it. And I also understand from my perspective and from my college's perspective and from my association's perspective, being like, man, we went through also 8 years of education. There's hundreds and thousands of dollars that went into the education, the tools, let alone the practice existing and the staff that you have to pay. And
Mhm.
what you take on. I mean, like most people don't know that I believe that when you see a medical doctor, you're not covered under the healthcare system. I think it's like $180 for that 10 minutes or something like that.
Oh,
But
really?
people don't recognize, of course, the benefits they have in being under the
Mhm.
healthcare system. But there's something to be said. It's kind of like you want to work out and you haven't been able to push yourself. And there's one thing to be said about signing up for a gym membership. And there's
Mhm.
something else to be said about paying an upfront fee to a trainer or to some, like very specific, specialized, like boxing, CrossFit, I don't know,
Mhm.
10 or, round 7, or I don't know. There's so many different things that they're called that makes you feel like I've invested in this. So I'm committed. And so I want to do this. And there's
Mhm.
nothing more I enjoy than working with committed people. And to be honest, when I was a student in the Boucher Institute, that's a naturopathic school in New Westminster, they have a clinic there for low-income families. Certainly,
Mhm.
because you have students that are seeing you, and then they are reporting back to a supervisor who is that patient's physician per se. But
Mhm.
the students are like the middlemen that get to learn. They get to also make their mistakes. They get to get feedback both from the patients and from the doctor.
Mhm.
And so there's a lot to be said for the sort of training that comes together with that. But that was a
Yeah.
point I was going to make, and I forgot it.
Yeah, there's a lot of, well, like on the money factor too. I kind of like that for an accountability. It's like you go to the doctor and you spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes and it's kind of like, okay, or I come and I know I'm spending $200 for this information. Um, I'm a lot more likely to use that and make sure I do something, because then if then I'm booking another appointment, like what am I going to do? Spend $200, then book another one, spend another $150 next week, and just sit at home and do nothing. Like I
Yeah.
wanted to be able to report that I'm doing things.
Doing something and seeing a change. And that's also something that's difficult because, people then expect, they say they paid $210 or whatnot for that initial consult, and then they expect to be like cured because they paid that amount the next time. And certainly if it's like an infectious disease and you take the prescribed antiviral, antibacterial, antibiotic, whatever, then that's really, really good. But
Mhm.
most people nowadays don't come into the doctor's office because they have a communicable disease, like an infectious per se disease, but
Mhm.
because they have a non-communicable or something else that's chronic going on. And I think in some respect that certainly includes dormant infections that are very tough and take a long time to resolve. A lot of people live with dormant infections that they don't recognize. And the point I was trying to make about Boucher Institute was the fact that because it's a low-income clinic, my experience was that the people that didn't have to pay, because you could always sponsor patients, that didn't have to pay for anything, those are you're always your lowest compliance. Those are the people every visit you ask them, did you do this? No. Did you do this? No. Did you do this? Why didn't you do this? I didn't get around to it. Did you do this? No. And certainly that gets frustrating, but you're human. You can have an understanding for it. But even if it's $5, if it's $10, there has to be a small commitment, I find, or investment for that person to have this mental commitment to what they're going to pursue in their life.
Yeah, I think that it's important. I was actually talking to my life coach about that too the other day, because he started it's like a mental health AI bot that you can like talk to, and it gives you advice back, and he wants to give it away for free and kind of use it as like a lead magnet to bring clients in. And I'm like, it's like, yeah, but I think I should just give it to people. And I was like, well, you could, but you think they're going to use it? I was like, they will. They'll think it's cool. You get that person in, they'll probably use it for 3 days, and then they won't. If you make someone pay even $3 or $7 or $10 for it a month, then they're probably going to use it. Like I said, you should set some software up to see the retention rate on how long they actually use it for. I can almost guarantee the person who had to pay a minimal couple dollars would use it way longer or keep using it, as opposed to if you just
or they used it or let's say they invested in it and they didn't use it and they didn't resubscribe. And then also that's a really good marker, because that tells you that's not the kind of person that I'm trying to market this to anyway.
Yeah,
exactly. Just as much valuable information.
Yeah, you're kind of like weeding out.
You got to hit your niche, right? And everything you do.
Yeah, get rid of the people who aren't going to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think. Well, and the other thing that I liked about, the clinic was expensive, but well, it's funny too, because when I tell people, I get it reached out to a lot, and people ask, I want to see a naturopath, where should I go? Or no, they ask who I see, like, who's your naturopath? I was like, well, he's on Salt Spring Island, so you can't see him, as I don't even see him anymore. And I haven't really been to, since you left and went over there. I've seen one doctor at Integrated once, but I've referred a lot of people there, and like, well, how much does it cost? I'm like, well, I don't know. Basically what I did, actually, when I came to see you, I researched the most expensive place pretty much that I could find. I was like looking around, and I asked for recommendations, and the places just kind of looked weird, and I was like, I don't know. And then Integrated was like a fair bit. Most places were like $100, and Integrated was about $2. And I was like, I don't give a shit. I like Fort Langley. It's nice down there. Whatever. It must mean it's good if it's expensive. So I did that. I wasn't really looking for a cheap deal. I just wanted the best help I could find.
I find people that look for the deal, usually they're missing the point of why they're going to, why they're doing this in the first place. I mean, I certainly can understand everyone's financial restrictions, especially nowadays. Like I said, there's a little bit of investment that goes a long way.
Yeah, it's.
I think people sometimes also forget that it's certainly you pay for that time with the doctor for that hour or hour and a half or however long, but there's like so much time we take as NDs afterwards to research your case, to come up with plans, to write up your plans, to all these things that people just take for granted. But that's fine, because that's the kind of stuff we're meant to be doing behind closed doors.
Yeah, that's just part of it.
Part of the deal, man.
And even, well, the other thing I liked about Integrated too was the at your practice now, you know how they had the other little room where like the nurses worked and they would give you the IVs and stuff? Does every clinic have that? Like, I've never been to another naturopathic clinic.
No, I don't think.
It's not that common?
No, they don't. I don't even have that. But like my practice now is very different. When I was at Integrated, it was like, I always called it the ship. There's like so many crew members and like different captains and whatnot. There's like, it's a tight ship and there's a lot of things going on. And now I'm on a private practice, and I realized I just kind of like doing my own thing. So, I've got 3 rooms, and They're very specific in terms of the intention that's used with them. And I also don't have a reception because I find nowadays with everything being digital and online and the software that's out there, you don't need to create this separation of like you're waiting in an area, you pay, or like you go do something, you come back, you pay for it. And I take care of most of that myself. And because it's a home-based business, you know, people hang out in the living room and they feel like they're hanging out in the home, and they get a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, make themselves cozy. Some people afterwards stay behind for a little bit. Some people, we usually encourage people to go and walk the 70 acres of our property. So we created a lot of healing spaces around that with the intention of becoming sort of a health resort, a naturopathic medical retreat center. So a lot of my time has been put on that. And, you know, because the idea is being a naturopathic medical retreat center, and the fact that we've got 6 rooms, that's 6 to 12 patients, 6 to 12 people. If you're working with 6 to 12 people every day, you don't need to have, you know, 50 clinic rooms. You don't need to have a reception. You don't need to have all these things, right? So we really specialized and focused on what we wanted to do and the kind of feeling we wanted to evoke, right? You know, we wanted to create something different, especially as a retreat center, that people just came here and they felt at home. They felt it. Because I think that feeling of feeling comfortable and feeling at peace, that's healing right there. You know, I find like a lot of medicine is good, but it doesn't work as effective if you aren't ready to receive that. You know, if you're running around like a plucked chicken all day, it's going to be very difficult for, you know, your adrenals to recover, for your immune system to activate, for your muscles to relax, for you to get good sleep. And so when you're trying to take all these pills or all these, you know, pharmaceuticals or whatever it is, or nothing at all, you're doing lifestyle, it's a lot harder for some of this stuff to do its work. Your body's not ready to take that on. So.
Yeah, that's a huge, I mean, I guess that's where I had an advantage too, because I took work off. Like I didn't have a choice. I was so messed up that I pretty much couldn't move. Like I couldn't go to work, and I would get so instantly stressed out that I just basically had to take a year off and do nothing. And I think that was like one of the biggest things. If you're going to keep trying, stressing yourself out and going, it's really hard to make a change. Like you're kind of just trying to constantly battle that thing and nothing's really happening. It's just like,
yeah, right. Do the same thing over and over again without achieving a different result.
Yeah, nothing's really changing.
Yeah, I hear you. And you know, in a way, I think there's a little bit of the silver lining with this pandemic taking place, where people are forced to not go to work and are forced to stay home. And I really recommend for all the viewers right now to really consider, you know, how can I be a creator in my life right now, or how can I really get in touch with myself? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people that are at home that are maybe looking for distractions because they can't go to work. And there's maybe some things emotionally that are coming up that they've been trying to suppress for a long time. This is actually the opportunity to let that open and let that out and feel that, because it's too easy to go back to work whenever that'll be happening and then be like, oh, I'm too busy to do that. Oh, I got these things going on. Oh, no, I need to do that. And, you know, we run ourselves with a bunch of excuses all day. And so I think nowadays, because of what's happening, people don't really have that excuse. They'll have other ones.
Yeah.
That's human. I got plenty.
Yeah, me too. No, I think it is a great time. And that's what I've been saying. I'm like, I mean, you've got so much time now. There's really I mean, even if you're only going to dedicate an hour a day to yourself, I mean, that's an hour more than you did every other day.
Yeah, truly dedicate and take the time to do that. I mean, I've been all my life, I'm like super fast at everything that I do, like way too fast, like anxiously written fast, restlessly fast. And this period has been a beautiful time for me to slow down and really be okay with slowing down too, you know, because everyone else has to slow down. I don't have to feel guilty. I'm not sedentary, you know, I'm not being lazy by slowing down a little bit. And then when you get past that phase, you can actually really acknowledge what's going on. And then, you know, for me, I've been like, oh, what I've learned and the way I've adjusted, the way I've shown up for myself and my family and my wife and my kid, I like that. I like that person. and how can I bring that into a new era of my life? And I think a lot of us are going through transitions right now, emotionally, mentally. I think also very much professionally, people going through seeking different career opportunities because of what's happening and being forced to do that. And there's growing pains that come with that. But I think once you're past the growing pains, you're like, oh, like I've been wanting to do this all my life, and the situation has provided the silver lining for me to do that.
Yeah, I wonder how it'll be after this. Like, I think like kind of like the slowing down factor, if people will kind of stay like that once it's all things come back to normal, I guess.
Yeah, honestly. We'll be around for that.
Yeah. And for your, because you guys were getting ready to open the retreat center, right? Or is it like is it finished?
Well, it's already set and done, but right now with
yeah,
taking place, we're not expecting anybody visiting anytime soon.
No, but it was ready to launch until this happened.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there are some legal hurdles we have to go around with the Islands Trust, but we're allowed to do in a different way what we want to. But right now, with everything's happening, we just put it on a standstill and be like, okay, we got time to wait. Let's wait this out. And in the meantime, I'm wanting to put everything that I do, that I wanted to share with people here at this retreat center, because I think it's a really remarkable space. I've been always very much like an in-person person. I've always kind of shied away from the media, from digital, from social media, etc. And I'm realizing now with what's happening, like, you're kind of forced into this.
Yeah.
Okay? And so I'm starting this YouTube channel. I've acquired all this equipment, and I'm going to be sharing with my patients and people, right? Anybody, what I wanted to share with people here in person and actually bring that forth online. So that's kind of what I'm focusing on right now until we further what's happening in the world.
Yeah, that'll be good. Do you know when you're going to have the first stuff out?
I'm hoping to have the first stuff up by the end of this week.
Nice.
Actually, I'm not hoping. I will. Because at the end of the day, like that's the thing about me, though. I'm a huge perfectionist. I got to get everything ready. I got to get all things aligned. I think my son gets a lot of that from me. And so everything's got to be like perfectly set up. And but I have to learn this software. And I have to learn this equipment to make this better. And then I'm recognizing Rigo, just put out your first video. It's not going to be the best video. It's not. It's because it's the first. And so just put it out there, and then keep putting it out there. And then you're going to get, with time, that experience to know what to do and how to do and where to do. But I hope I'm going to reach an audience, or at least make an impression on my first one or on my 100th one. It doesn't matter. But really just start putting it out there, and just showing the world what I know, and doing it in a way that it's like entertaining, but also informative, for someone that's watching and really gets it and really feels like they're being personally spoken to about what's happening for them, or something that they're passionate about. That's why they found the video, and to find different ways of looking at it, or ways to use it, or further steps to be more involved in it. So like that's kind of what I'm excited about. I got a few thoughts floating around my head, and I think a lot of it is initially going to be very much lifestyle things that or medical aspects of our life that we could all recognize and resonate with. So this is not so much a channel for my colleagues. This is not something that, like, I wouldn't be watching my colleagues' channel if they were talking about stuff that I do already. But sometimes it's nice to hear a different person's take on it. And the analogies is what I'm always most interested in, is because analogies is a different way to tell a story. But the story has the same impact or the same outcome. And so I think this is more so for the public that I'm doing this. And who knows, unfold organically, and I get to see who my community is. And I wouldn't be surprised if, it's sort of like show me your friends and I'll show you who you are, that your community ends up being a bit of a reflection of yourself, right? Because that's what people can connect with.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point, actually. I never really thought about that they would kind of be like you.
I mean, there's got to be some sort of overlapping interest, I imagine.
Yeah,
Whether
yeah.
it's humor, or it's in the delivery, or it's in, the joy you have in, I don't know, putting drone footage up, or who knows what.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah. No, that'll be good though to get to, yeah. I mean, and I think that huge too, just starting and getting something out there. I think like even you and I, like even now that you just say that, like, you kind of attract people like yourself. I'm literally the exact same way. It's like so perfectionist with the podcast, like even this, when my first time, like took me a year to do it
Yeah,
because I was like, nope, it's not ready yet. I don't know enough. It's not going to be.
and the fear of failure, right?
Yeah.
That's a big one. The fear of failure, the fear of not being good enough. And like, that's why, I easily preach to people, oh, like this is a time where you need to slow down and you need to become a creator. Or not need to, if you have I think we all have the ability to create within us. So yeah, I think in some degree you should be able to do that. But the problem with creating is that it creates an opportunity for failure, for rejection, for commentary, or not good enough. And I think when you get over that hump, you realize it's not so bad.
No.
Like,
and like
those things are going to take place anyways.
Yeah, like if you're the one putting yourself out there and people are commenting or whatever, maybe saying they don't, I think people are always scared of negative comments or feedback. But at the end of the day, like the people who are giving you that are people who they're too scared to do what you're doing anyways.
You're so right about that.
Like if you're the one who's in the ring playing the game, and they're not, then it doesn't really matter what they say. Like they don't really have any advice.
Yeah, I think that's where also I come against a little bit of my own obstructions, because I've looked at other people doing social media and walking around with their cameras and talking about stuff, and there's many times topics I am not interested in, and I judge it. Judge it. I'm very much a lurker in the way that I don't really write anything, but I my own opinions like everyone does. And I think to myself, oh my God, I could never do that. Who wants to know that? And, that's terrible, whatnot. And then when I started wanting to think about doing this, I really came against myself, and I realized, whatever these people are talking about, even if I don't resonate it, they're showing up. They're actually showing up. And they're showing up authentically in the way that they know. Or even if it's inauthentic and they're just getting something else out of it, they're at least doing it. That's got to be celebrated, So, and I guess that's what I'm kind of like hesitating to, right? So, like I said, this week for sure, it's going down. It's happening.
We'll have a big celebration for your first
big celebratory. I'm gonna send you the video. You know what? You should be critiquing all of it so I can get over my hump easier.
How long were you going to do the videos? Are they going to be like longer or shorter?
No, 10, 15 minutes. I think anything over than that is killing people's time. I really respect people's time, and I want to make sure they get what they want out of it, and that they get to learn something, but also feel entertained. Not just that, you went through like a Wikipedia page and you just learned a bunch of stuff. And I definitely didn't want to, and I wanted to create, different footage, different areas, different scenarios. Maybe I'll dress up even at times differently, and just to like keep a person engaged in this, because I was in a teaching role for quite some time. I was a supervisor with students, and I recognize like people online don't have an attention span for like an hour. That's sometimes what I struggle with, is when I go on YouTube and I see colleagues of mine do a presentation. Well, certainly they actually just filmed their presentation that was meant for an audience, not for an online audience. But they filmed that, and I'm just like, oh, I'm sitting here, it's pixelated, the audio's terrible, and it's an hour of just talking. And unless you're just like, unless that's your like lifeblood and you just love that topic, it's kind of difficult to stay the whole way there for it. So I think I want to create something that's really informative and applicable for yourself in a very health-related capacity, which a lot of things are. Like a lot of things are health-related, even like things you enjoy doing.
Yeah. And are you going to showcase some of the retreat center?
Oh yeah, totally. Well, the way I thought about it was, I'm here, got a big home and a huge acreage property, and this is like a playground in a way, like a medical playground or something. Where I got to do and show and share why I did certain things there and why I didn't do certain things here. and have some drone footage of the property as a B-reel to really get people into feeling like they're there with me. That's what I want to do, because I always thought I would just want to do this with people here, and then I realized, I think I can actually share this with people online. I think that's possible. I used to never think that experiences translate online, but this whole transition period that we're living in now has really made me double think about, people having Zoom meetings, people working far away from home. I'm getting people doing FaceTime much more with me and just getting together just to chat or have a glass of wine or whatnot. And so I'm recognizing how much room there is actually for the online platform to share an experience together. And so that's really what I want to be doing. And I finally got all the equipment to do it. So it's just me putting a little bit of fire into my ass and getting going.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome too, because I think it'll showcase so much that it'll almost be like when things do come back around, it'll also be so much to showcase what's going on there for people who actually want to come in person when that's an option too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. Because I mean, like I said, I was always kind of more narrow-minded, being like, this is more for the person that comes in, not for the person to see. And I think our website does a really good job at showcasing a feeling. That's always one I wanted to give people, a feeling of something. And certainly there's medical information on that website that people can relate with. But it's not one of those medical websites you go on and it's just medical jargon for like 500 pages. And it's this lexicon of different information. That's not what I wanted to create. I mean, there's 1,000 websites. You look for one of those, or you look for something, you let me know, I'll send you to them. But that's not what we wanted to create. So for us, it was very much about videos and the feeling and the look of it. And also, getting some of my principles across and the importance, like a big thing here was nature being a very important piece that people are really wanting to connect with right now, or neuroception, the aspect of polyvagal theory, which is all about people are in states before they're on stories, and people react to things before they even recognize they react to things. And they do that because they've been taught since childhood to respond to certain things physiologically, and then there becomes a feeling behind that. And then also, the importance of nutrition, spring, I'd say probably every meal that I have has come from a farm or somewhere within my 30-mile radius. And that feels really kind of special. And so I know where my food's coming from, and that's certainly important, but also about putting food together in a way that's easy and enjoyable and having fun with it. Like the big thing for this whole project and everything that I'm even doing online was about having fun, finding the silver lining, and that it doesn't have to get so, I find people, and for good reason, people that struggle with a health concern, they get lost in this hamster wheel after a while. They get down this snowball effect, and they might get several different diagnostic labels. And I know people that I see that have just 3 sheets of different supplements that they're taking, and it gets to a point where it gets just very confusing and gets very overwhelming, and everything gets very, very fear oriented and consequence oriented. So it's like, oh no, I missed my B5 vitamin today. It's the whole day has gone wrong. And it's like, no, that's not the way it works, right? And really understanding why you're taking something, and in a way that meaning response of feeling good and in alignment with everything that you do, and creating that simplicity for people, finding that joy in taking care of yourself, and not flagellating, beating yourself into submission to feel better or detox harder or whatnot. And there's something to be said for compliance, and there's something to be said for diligence and consistency, and fighting your own demons and going against the grain for yourself. I think there can be also a lot of peace, a lot of tranquility, a lot of serenity in that process.
Yeah, you definitely need both.
Yeah.
I
think it's just, if you just go the hard road all the time, it just hardens you as a person, and I know that all too well, personally.
Yeah,
it's exhausting.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, it's nice that you guys are out there in that space now too. You're not cooped up inside of a
Yeah.
apartment downtown or something like that, right?
I think about that a lot. I think about what would it be like if I was back in my 1-bedroom apartment with my partner, a dog, and a 2-year-old with another child on the way in 3 months. How would I feel? Would I feel the same way? Would I feel worse? Would I go a little stir crazy? I think I probably would.
Mm-hmm.
Here, because we're on Salt Spring Island, where it's like a rock removed a little bit, and you kind of go into town to do your groceries anyways, it doesn't feel much different besides some of the restrictions on, or some of the new etiquette of doing your groceries.
Mm-hmm.
I must admit, at times I forget what's happening in the world, because I'm fortunate enough to be so deep entrenched in the woods and in nature, and in a retreat center where I get to do a lot of things, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, are the people over there like taking it as seriously as they are on the mainland? Or I guess you might not
Yeah.
even know that. Yeah, they
I'd
are.
say so. Although, what's my comparison? All I know is the people here. I don't know really what's happening on the mainland.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't certainly have I see people wearing masks here. I see some people wearing gloves here.
Mm-hmm.
Then I also see people congregating together. And so
Yeah.
you kind of get both worlds.
Yeah. Same thing.
So I think it's this, it's the same thing. I just think the difference is that when you're in an urban city like Vancouver or Toronto or Montreal, there's a certain buzzingness to it, right? That attracts some people. Some people like being in the know of things, in the moving of things, in the trend of things. That's definitely something I miss being on this island. And so I think that with that buzz, it's almost like a community buzz, a cultural buzz, an urban buzz that everyone can pick up like a spark. And I think in some cities it's worse than others. Like, I've heard I once told a person, like Vancouver is really fast for me. It's a really quick pace. They laughed at me and they were like, oh, you got to come to LA. And if you want to have it really hard, you go to New York. That's even faster than everything else. And so you got to take that into consideration. If you got I don't know what that feeling like in LA or New York, right? Like that buzzing is probably a lot louder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't even imagine that. I've heard people say the same thing. Kind of want to go once just to see. Even I feel like Vancouver's a lot for me, like you said. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's
Yeah. I just found when I was living in North Vancouver, I wasn't actually going much downtown anymore. And I actually noticed people on the weekends were going to North Vancouver, because now it's a hub of we've got the Lonsdale Quay, not just the market, the whole place with the restaurants and everything, and the brewery alley and whatnot. And I just realized it takes more work to go to downtown, and then you got to pay entrance fee to go to bars. Why would I pay an entrance fee to go to bars? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
A lot of lineups everywhere, and it's loud, and it's you know what? I like it for certain times. I mean, my wife and I, when we first moved to Salt Spring Island and we came back to visit in Vancouver, I don't know, there's got to be a force field or something that you move through, because there's a certain period of time when you're I don't know, you're driving, let's say, down south of Granville, you're going into town, you're starting to feel a little more restless. You're starting to feel a little more anxious. Certainly a little bit more road rage comes out. You're certainly finding out, drivers are not really communicating with each other, and you get this and whatever it is, we both felt oh, this feels really uncomfortable. It's a good thing we didn't go to Vancouver. It's a good thing we moved out of Vancouver. And we felt it the first time, we felt the second time, felt the third time. But then I also told my wife, instead of seeing that feeling as a negative thing, have you ever considered seeing it as something positive? That slight restlessness, that slight buzzing, things are moving. They may be moving a little too fast for you. That's okay. You're going to catch up to things. And actually taking it for what it is as a city and enjoying that, because you're not going to get that back home. Back here, I don't even have a single street light. We got one single stop sign.
Yeah.
The entire island, right? And so when you take that into consideration, that kind of buzzing, you kind of miss that in a way. So
yeah, it is crazy.
Silver linings, man. The silver linings.
Yeah, it's crazy the difference over there, honestly. Every time I come over there to Salt Spring, I'm like, man, this is I like it, but yeah, it's insanely opposite of the city.
Yeah. I think there's the enjoyable aspect of being able to take a break, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's the nice thing about Salt Spring. Whereas for me, it's like the opposite is like taking charge or whatever that's called. Like
Yeah. Your
charge
break's a
yourself.
lot more upbeat.
You know, I find that's just counter culture where some people come here to relax and I come to Vancouver to feel a bit more buzz in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And it just depends on like really again honoring what kind of person am I. Like do I need more buzz or do I need more relaxation, right? And yeah, I guess at the end of the day you can create that in your own world wherever you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and always changing that too. Like I think like one big thing, people are so scared to move like location
Oh yeah.
wise a lot. And it's like if you're in the city and it's too much, like there's no reason you can't like do something like you guys did, go live on Salt Spring. Maybe in 4 or 5 years you decide you want to live in the city again. Like
Yeah.
nothing saying you can't do that.
I think that's really important. I've never wanted to like not mold myself, but like, you know, confine myself to this is who I am, this is what I have to do. I think very much I'm a bit of a gypsy where I like to travel. I like changing my life. My family always called it, you know, I like changing my life. And what I'm actually recognizing now in my life is that I like experiences more than I like owning things. So for me, it's like, I would love to drive a Ferrari for the experience of driving a Ferrari. But there's nothing to be gained for me for owning a Ferrari unless I want to experience it all the time. But that's the thing about experience is that for me, once I've experienced it a few times, I'd like a different experience. I'd like to take as many experiences in my life as I can. And I think moving is very much an experience because you're not just moving your foundation of where you live and all the places you go to, but also your community around you. You know, like I've made new friends, different kind of friends. I've learned things that I would have never learned in Vancouver, being on Salt Spring Island. Like I know how to point out different trees and know what they are. I know how to point out different birds or animals. I know how to use a chainsaw. I know how to cut wood properly. I know how to compost properly. I know how to, you know, garden and fertilize and weed and prune trees. And that might not be really interesting for someone in the city. Certainly, why would you do any of those things? But being on that, those are actually really all important skills that you use throughout the year. And I'm really grateful to have learned this arsenal of skills, especially something that's not medically related. I mean, it's just because I learn medical stuff all the time. I have books all the time. I look at research all the time. And so it's sometimes refreshing to learn something that's more like, you know, utility-wise, more hands-on. So it's refreshing. I think you need that in your life. A little bit of you know, a little bit of A, a little bit of B.
Yeah, change it up. And
yeah, change it up. It's just, you know, when you're married and you've got a family and whatnot, you can't change it up too often.
Yeah,
other people that need to change with you.
Yeah, that makes it a little tougher. But you guys are all in Salt Spring, right? Like the whole family's there now.
Yeah, the whole family's here. So we're a lot closer to my family now than we were to my wife's family. Back in Vancouver. And there's a lot to be said about working together as a family. Wow, you really get to learn your family when you work together. And a different side of your family, of your parents or who they are. You get to really see them as human beings, both great and fallible at the same time. You get to see how people work things and figure out your own strengths and weaknesses. And I really consider sometimes being on Salt Spring Island like a bit of a pilgrimage. Like since I've lived here, and I've lived here now for a year and a half, it's been like just experience after experience after experience. And I'd say half of them not pleasant, but experiences, and you learn from those, and they build character and integrity, and there's a lot of growth and evolution that comes away. And I say that now, you know, but you know, whenever I say to let things unfold organically, I'm like the last person letting go, kicking and screaming. So it's been tough at times, but looking back at it now, certainly in retrospect, I can say I'm happy.
Yeah, I think the worst experiences are always the best stories anyways.
Yeah, honestly. Honestly, yes and no. There's some experiences my wife still brings out at parties. I'm like, I don't want to hear this story again. Like, I've heard this story too many times. It takes me back there every time. I don't want to do that.
Well, what is? I don't know if you have one. Is there one of the? What's the worst?
Yeah, I'll tell you one right now. I ended
over there.
An event that I had part in took place in New York. It was on CNN. It was a flight that was on the tarmac for 17 hours. That was me. I was on that flight, and I was also, then I was waiting another 4 hours to let the flight go. And the flight was actually the day prior, but after waiting another 3 hours, they had to send me back home. And all in all, I was like over 24 hours traveling confined in an airplane. And, you know, like it was like Lord of the Flies, man. It like things just started getting a little crazy. People are like petitioning, and water's running out, and the kids are screaming, and the toilets are just looking desecrated at this point. And but no one's allowed to lay down in VIP business class, right? Even though there's like empty seats there, because you know you gotta hold the mold or whatnot. And I just remember that was a really, really, and I went through the phases of like, you know, like anger and regret and depression, and I was crying, and then I was just laughing at myself. I like went through the whole range of emotions, and I was so tired because it was the first time that I thought I'd be smart. I'd be like, oh, I'm going to New York. I'm going to be there for 4 days. I'm going to be proposing to my wife around that time. I need to have good sleep. You know what I'll do? I'll take melatonin in preparation of New York, because it was a red eye that I would get into New York, and I would have slept, and I would have acclimatized to that time zone much faster. If everything worked out, that would have been great, but it didn't. So I came like melatonin, like back home after the flight, back onto the flight, and then like 17 hours on the tarmac, and it was just.
Oh my.
Yeah, well, you see me smiling, so I guess there must be some enjoyable part of that I can look back and laugh at. But yeah, like that's a toughie. I guess I take it back. You see me laughing, you see me smiling. Yeah, those ones are the stories that you can laugh back at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, they're always the best. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, is there anything else that you want to talk about?
Let's see.
Trying to think. I mean, like the retreat center and stuff, it's kind of hard to talk about it.
Yeah, well, especially with
it's more so showing it.
Time right now.
Yeah.
Right now, it's just I'm really just focusing on bringing the retreat center to the online world. So, and I've just also kind of like, you know, modified the website a little bit to speak to that. I'm just working on that, and yeah, it's nice.
Is the website up?
Yeah, the website's up.
Is there pricing on it?
No pricing.
Okay. No. Is that something you don't want to?
People are interested, they go. But if people are looking just for an appointment per se, as like going to visit as an outpatient, then all you have to do is book an appointment online. It takes you to the Jane portal, and all the prices are there.
Okay. Yeah. So that's if you just want to do a one-on-one with you, but if you
if you just want one-on-one with me or with anyone of the other practitioners, you can do that. But for the retreat center portion, because we're in this uncertain time, and because with the Islands Trust and everything, we were just like, you know what, like we're going to
leave it off.
We have a page there for people that are interested, and they can ask us about it. And then if we can work something out, we will work something out. Well, right now it's just kind of on standstill.
And for that, like I guess this is like, and who knows when, but is there like a certain time people have to stay for? Or could you come and stay for like 1 or 2 nights, or you want people to stay for like a week?
I think I genuinely like for people to stay at least a week.
Yeah.
I think have you ever noticed when you've traveled, it takes you maybe like 2 or 3 days to unwind until you're So it's like, why have someone come for so short and then leave again? I think for some, but again, it's just depends on circumstances, depends on how many rooms are filled, depends on the person. Like, you know, if you came to visit, it'd be a very different thing. I know who you are.
Yeah.
And like, you know, I think the original plan was a week to 2 weeks, but, you know, originally we had this big plan of it being only for cancer patients, because, you know, that was my field was cancer. I went to Germany. I saw all the different cancer care centers there. I wanted to emulate those because I thought something like this didn't exist in Canada. And I was just so set on it. And with all the resistance and all the delays we've had, both in construction and legally with being able to do this, it's really allowed me to think a little bit. And I came to the realization that my interest in the cancer field was always quality of life. It was always mental health. It was always about allowing people to, find the best in their lives and thrive and find purpose and live with purpose. And like with any condition, learn that they may have to live with cancer for the rest of their life. Whether that cancer is cancer free, because even as a survivor, you still feel like there's a mark that's placed on you, or a feeling that encapsulates, or a fear that it may happen again, let alone if you've had, a mastectomy, you had your breasts removed, or you had certain body parts removed, that certainly you would feel like that makes up who I am as a person. I feel that that's part of my journey. But also realizing, like, if you know that this is something you have to live with, finding some level of acceptance and congruency to move forward in life, whether that cancer is debilitating, or whether that cancer is managing, or that cancer is regressing, or you're looking at end of life. Because at that point in time, like that if you're looking at end of life and you're in a palliative setting and you're no longer at this point in your life where you know that you have a finite amount of time to be on this planet, there's a lot to be said about continuing the fight, and the toll it takes on you, and the toll it takes on your family, and the side effects that may come with that. And then there's another thing to be said about living your life, about being around the closest ones and realizing what's important to you, and getting some level of acceptance and understanding about your, existence in life, and finding a good balance between those. And so for me, it was always about what was happening in here. I didn't recognize that. I didn't recognize that at first. It took me a while because I was so focused on learning, all the conventional therapies. So like immunotherapy, chemo, radio, whatnot, surgery, how to support those, how to mitigate their side effects. Then I learned a lot about the natural approaches of certain medications or supplements or herbs that are able to help support or address the cancer, certain therapies, ways, all that stuff. I learned that stuff. And certainly it's continuously evolving. We're always learning new things like off-label drug medications and whatnot. But that part about like what's happening up in here, I felt like that was always the part that was the hardest for me to ever work out, because it's every person's so unique, and really figuring out how to work with people in that sense. Because I think a lot of what's happening in here is going to have an effect on your body. I'm not going to say, like heal your mind, heal your body. Like your thoughts can get your cancer rid of. Nor do I think that food is what made your cancer. Food's what's going to break your cancer. I think those are very utopian ideas. Maybe be a good way of putting it, or putting it at like the most optimistic standpoint. I think you have to be very realistic about some of the things, and really knowing like what position am I in. Am I a prime candidate of chemo right now? Because if you are, and that chemo is a very effective one, why wouldn't you? Like lymphomas, chemo is amazing for, right? So people need to be aware of some of these things. But again, like I said, it's always about the mind aspect. And so being on this island, I started really recognizing that, I learned everything about cancer that I wanted to learn, and ongoingly so. But I really want to spend a lot more time now on this mental health part. Really want to focus more on that, because I think I had maybe also the mistaken belief that people that live with cancer required more mental health support than anybody else. And I don't think that's true anymore. I think there's a lot of people that can live beautiful lives without any condition, but mental health is what is hindering them from growing and evolving and thriving in their lives, no matter what condition, if any at all, they live with, besides the mental health portion itself. And so that's really what I've been wanting to focus this retreat center on. And so then it changed from being like, we're a center for cancer care and helping people with, high-end tech equipment and lifestyle and mindset and mind, body, spirit and meditation, all these great things, to being like, no, we actually welcome anybody that's in search for greater health, and be aware that we'll be doing a big like focus on your mental health. That's so important. And I think that's why we ask people to stay a week or 2 weeks, because it takes that much time to sort of unfold and peel the layers of the onion off and see what comes up. And we also recommend people usually to come with their partners or someone, because it's good to have that soundboard. It's good to have someone that sees you for who you are. Sometimes it's very difficult for us to see who we are and what kind of shit we're in when you're so deep. Sometimes it's good for someone like just to take you out of that quicksand and be like, yeah, look at that. That's what you were sitting in, and this is why you were sitting in it. This is what's going on. You probably know that already, but you're so emotionally intertwined and attached and bound to it. Chained in some degrees to some of those thoughts, prevalent thoughts you're having. That's very difficult for you to keep it moving. And so like that's kind of what I'm focusing on. So like right now, kind of what's happening for us is that I'd say for better or not, with what's happening in the pandemic right now, we're taking the time to close the retreat center. So we're not letting anybody come right now. We're going to wait and see what happens with our island proceedings to make sure that, we're German. We like to have everything by the book. All things work in alignment. And I really want to focus more so on this online stuff that I'm doing right now. I'm still having a practice, but it's very, very much slimmed down based on what's happening. A lot of it is telemedicine now. So I don't get to see a lot of people coming up here. But, like a large part of it is now just doing this online stuff. So I gotta tell you, that's really where my heart's in it right now.
Oh, awesome. Like I love that direction for the center. And the thing for me too, is I was always like, people would talk about things. I'm like, yeah, my naturopath and his family created this thing up there, but I think it's only for cancer. But I think that's cool that it is for everyone.
Should be for everyone, right? I think the only thing I sometimes struggle with is like, this definitely still overlaps in mental health, is hardcore addictions. The reason why is because when you have people with really, 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 really hard addictions, like we're talking like, certainly addiction can be anything, but just for simplicity's sake, I'll just say crystal meth, crack, whatnot, things that are going to have a major physiological impact, which is something you'll live with for the rest of your life. You need to have a lot of staff. You need to have a lot of systems in place. And, if you go on our website, you'll recognize you're coming into someone's home. A large home feels large enough that it feels like a business, but it's not like, like locked doors, panic buttons, things like that. No, it's not the kind of space we wanted to create it. I think there's kudos to those spaces. They are necessary, but that's not the method that we wanted to do it.
So it is still,
And also, like, I think this was also always a little bit of a pitfall in our idea model of the retreat center, is that we never thought it'd be possible that we can have palliative cases up here. I don't have the tools for that.
I was going to ask that. So if someone was actually at the end of the road, would you have to send them somewhere else?
Yeah, I would. And sometimes even as a
you
physician,
can't just have someone pass away
and they're not able to travel. They got to stay put too. Right?
Yeah. Like you can't just have someone like basically die in one of the bedrooms.
I mean, you certainly could.
Oh, you could?
I could. I don't think there's anything against it as long as that person's wish. I think so. Okay, I got to check with my college. But let it be said that this is not something I want to take place in this home. But I think at the end of the day, a person has the right to pass away wherever they want.
But it's not like against the law for that to happen.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I think the only thing is, who's the authority over that person? Does the person still have the authority of themselves? Is the family involved? What's the family's wish, etc.? Really, really respect all those parts, but it really depends on the person. But like I said, that was always our bit of a pitfall, because we don't have like we've got superior quality beds, but you don't have hospital grade beds. You don't have little hangers that come up and lift you up the beds to place you on your chair or in your wheelchair. We have one wheelchair accessible room. The rest of them are not wheelchair accessible. Have stairs. So the idea was always to have people that live with cancer, but still had their, what we call in medicine, is activity of daily living. They can still wash themselves, dress themselves, bathe themselves. If they wanted to, they could do their groceries. They could make a bed. These the kind of things were important for a patient to have. And if they lacked a little bit of that, then they would need to have a companion that'd be able to fulfill that for them. But anything that goes further than that, we just felt like this is not the right place for you at this time.
Yeah.
It's just not. But I don't think that's right now much of a thought or concern in my life anymore in terms of the retreat center, because we're open to anyone, right? So
and with that too, because it's you, your mom, dad, and who else is
and my
practicing
wife,
it? Oh, what does she do?
she's a counselor.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so my dad's sort of the spiritual component, my wife's the sort of mental component, or mental emotional component. My
Mm-hmm.
mother, she does the esoteric sort of Reiki predominantly. She does some astrology as well, and then I, as the naturopathic physician, am sort of the director that overlooks things.
Well, that's awesome. And with the online, are you guys all going to be like sharing online too, or is it just going to be you?
It's just going to be me.
Okay.
I think right now my parents are just like, you know what, this is happening.
Yeah.
We're just going to enjoy our time right now. My wife's going to be giving birth in like,
Oh yeah, I didn't know you're having a second kid.
yeah, 3 months or so. I'm going to have a second kid. So like,
They're all busy.
that's why we also made the decision to be like, right now, we're going to close the retreat center. We're just going to I'm going to focus on the patients that I do see, but I'm just going to be doing a lot of online stuff right now.
That's awesome.
Just see where this pandemic, this transition, this quarantine, I don't think the world's going to go back to normal anytime soon. I don't think, or at least it'll have a new normal when it comes in place.
Yeah, I agree.
We'll see what that looks like. So right now we're happy here, and we're fortunate enough that we can close our doors, and then I get to really focus on doing stuff that you're doing right now, you know, like going online and seeing and talking to people and being heard and showing up. So kudos to you for doing that, Shelby.
Thank you.
It's admirable.
Yeah, and same for you. I mean, you're coming on here, you're willing to talk, and you're going to be doing your own thing. So I'm excited to see what you post, and I'll share it with my following and everyone that I know as well. So
I appreciate that, man. Thank you.